And we're live. Phil Tarrant, Tom Panos, Real Estate Exposed, special Monday morning, the block edition, the real story, what happened to the block. Tom Panos, probably the shortest amount of airtime on last night's block finale, but the biggest impact of anyone in the show. Tom, how are you feeling, mate?
I'm feeling good. Yeah. You know, it's funny you say that because they did it again last year. I had hardly any airtime, but I think, Phil, like realistically, it's probably that my auctions are really short. Like last year's auction was a 3-minute auction. This was a 5-minute auction. And generally speaking, if you've come out with your partner and you've seen me auction, if I have the opportunity, man, I get it done in minutes, not in hours, man. Just finish the thing.
Right, mate, good and efficient, Tom. Now, this is the first time Tom Panos has spoken about the real story behind the block last night. We're doing it live, Real Estate Exposed. So Tom, I'm going to interrogate you. It's so much I want to find out. I watched the finale with my family, got really into it. Saw you up first and went, hang on a second, this is going to be interesting. But we all know, if any of those who haven't seen it, you got the highest price by some margin, Tom. $5,666,666.66, $1.586 million over reserve, which is 4.08, a block record. Everyone thought, and I reckon everyone was watching this going, every single one of these block contestants are going to be instant millionaires. Look how this first property's run. And we all saw, subsequent to that, Tom, very, very hard to get any other prices up over 4 million. Two of them were passed in and negotiating now after the auction. There's this big question mark everywhere going, how did Tom Panos get 5.6 million for Omar and Oz when everyone else struggling to get over 4? It's going to be in the headlines for quite some time, Tom. What really happened? Why and how did you get such a good price?
Okay, so firstly, Phil, right at the outset, most of those agents and auctioneers on there are either colleagues or clients of mine, and I'm not going to turn around and in any way say, hey, they're worse, I'm better, they did that there. I might have done things differently, but in no way. So I'll just focus on why I think that result happened. Phil, I see it happening every weekend now. You get all these properties that are being passed in. I mean, the market's not good. Right? Here's this, the company that Adrian is, LMCT. That's the one, LMCT. Anyway, the market's not great, Phil. But then for some reason, some properties get astonishing money. Not only are they getting what they used to get, they're getting more. We're seeing more and more of it. And that happened yesterday. But Phil, in a nutshell, why did this property go for so much and the others didn't? Is number one, it was a better property. No question about it, right? Number two, it had 2 people that went on a bidding frenzy. And you need to remember that this is highly edited on TV, right? There's a lot of edits. There was a lot of tension there. And you had 2 people, and they are not your typical 2 buyers that are buying a home on a Saturday in a street in Sydney or Melbourne that has no TV. Both these people knew that everyone is watching. Both these people knew primetime TV. I mean, Adrian was wearing his brand T-shirt, right? In there. He's coming there with his brand T-shirt. Danny, man, is known as the guy on the block. Phil, do you know that Danny held my auction up by 40 minutes? He wasn't there. And the producers kept saying, just wait, just wait. I didn't even know that this guy here was going to be bidding. So when he got there, I thought, whoopee. But what I'm saying is, you're talking about sensationalism on TV. A guy making a late entrance with his entourage and his dogs. I think there's 1 or 2, right? You've got another guy that's pulled up in a, I don't know, is it a Lamborghini or Ferrari? I mix them up. I'm not into
Lambo, I think.
Lambo. He's pulled up in a Lamborghini. And what you've got is a narrative. The guy from the block and the new man with the new money, the changing of a guard. And I think, there's a classic scene in that auction which wasn't edited out where Danny gets so flustered when he looks at him and says, "Have you got the money?" And he responds, "Do you want to look at it?" Right? And by the way, Phil, he does have the money. He's got an incredible business. He actually only bought a home 2 months ago on the Gold Coast that he's doing for a few million bucks as well. So, Phil, the reason is that these two people wanted it badly. It wasn't just for them to live in. No, they wanted it because they knew everyone was watching. And then all I can say to you, Phil, is that, once the first property had sold, Adrian's budgets on the others had then been reduced. So unfortunately, the profits for the others had been taken out. And I feel sorry for the other contestants. That's what's actually happened. The profits have been taken out, which brings a great point, Phil. Order of sales. Like being first is not the best one to be. We know that in real estate. And in the block, the people that won the choice actually chose to go second, which is what I would have done. Because you can then see what the first one went.
Yeah, I remember on when we spoke on Thursday, Tom, the question I asked you was, I made a Melbourne Cup reference. What was the barrier draw? And you sort of sat there and you went, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. And you didn't tell us at the time that you were running first. But in this particular sense, in this case, going first has been the key driver. Now, you're fortunate that you had those two different bidders who were going at each other for all those reasons you said. Whether or not they would have done that on the first property, irrespective of whether it was Omar and Oz's or someone else's, it's for conjecture. No one's ever going to know, right? Conjecture. However, you got lucky, Tom, that you were number one. You had two very motivated bidders. But to your point, you said it was the best property for auction. So everything seems to have swung in your favor. Now, I watched the auction. You said it's highly edited, Tom. I've watched you auctioneer a lot, and you really didn't get into your flow. There was about a couple of little moments where I went, "Oh, there he is. There's Tom Panos. I hear him now. I see what he's doing." One thing, though, which I think is worth talking about, Tom, is that you rejected an offer early, and you did it pretty well. You passed that straight back. And I saw it, and I know your style, mate. You come straight back saying something on the lines of, "Look, the bid needs to be 4.5. So you just motivated that auction in the right direction for the get-go. How did you do that? Was that luck or was that skill?
It's both. I think you're dealt certain cards, but the way you handle those cards is imperative. So one of the things I've learned, Phil, is that, and I've got to do this every weekend, I get low-balled offers all the time. There's two ways that you can handle a low-ball offer: with style and dignity, and still allow the person that's made the offer realize, "I value you and I value your money," or you can actually be a little bit dismissive. And if you actually see what I've actually done, is I've actually thanked Frank, who is a buyer's agent, who's always on the block, Frank Valetic, I think his name is, who was bidding for another. I can't say the name of it. I'll get into trouble. He was bidding for another person that I met there on the day. He was there, but he didn't want to be. He was camera shy, not like Danny and Adrian. So Phil, you've got to do it. One of the things you've got to understand is that they've got the money. Make them the hero, right? Make them the hero. And Phil, particularly, just picture, Danny walks in 40 minutes late with his entourage. We're all waiting with his two dogs. There's a clear statement there. It's about me today. Give me my time, right? And I'm very mindful of that, right, with people, The same with Adrian. You're sitting there in the front row with your T-shirt. Hey, make me the hero today on Prime TV. I'm very respectful. And if they're going to give me low bids, whether it was them or Frank, or whether Danny's going to be, playing around with those funny oddball numbers, or he's going to go off and take advice like he did on the show off from his dog. Listen, I'll work with you at your pace. This is about you today.
Yeah, that's good tactic and tip there for all those budding auctioneers out there, and a lot of auctioneers who watch this. Tom, you made this important comment. I'd like to get some sense for it to pull into sort of the market that we're operating in right now. I had this discussion with my wife, and I said, if this auction took place in February versus November 2022, you would have had very, very different results. So I think, to your point, a microcosm of the Australian property market we saw play itself out on the block last night, where you have one property which gets hit out of the park and the other ones which are very lackluster or subdued. You're seeing that in markets right across Australia. How much impact do you think the current interest rate environment, rising interest rate environment, has had on people's attitude and aptitude and ability to secure property on the block? Has it had any effect at all?
It has, and maybe not as commercially as a non-block property, Phil. But at the end of the day, I can't help it. If the block auction was in February 2022 and not October 2022, there would have been more people bidding. Example, this time last year, I did the auction block for Luke and Josh. I can't remember exactly, but I would have had 2 to 3 times the number of bidders. They were flying left, right, and centre. If you want to talk about a short auction, man, you talk about a short auction. My auction last time was shown for 45 seconds. I went up about $1 million in like 30 seconds. There was fear of missing out. There was craziness. And you had your normal traditional buyers bidding with the celebrity buyers. And the competition created this, fierce bidding. So, of course, Phil, it has. And the truth is, look, the timing that week, we had just come off a week that basically they're saying this is not stopping. We're going to get inflation down from 8 to 3%. The words are slay the dragon, right? So, of course, you've got to take into account that all these things impacted the price, Phil, and it is. I mean, you've got to listen, beautiful properties, but anyone here, go on to realestate.com. Actually, you can't go on to realestate.com because, oh, yes, you can. You can go on there, but you won't see these properties on there. Go on to Real Estate and Domain, and you'll see that Gisborne doesn't have a median value anywhere near these prices of properties, right? We're talking, I think it's a couple of million is the average there,
So these are all suburb records by some margin. I guess it shows some sense to the fluctuation you see in these lifestyle markets now, which are within an hour and a half of the city centres. They're all, some of them are going up in value rapidly. Some of them are really holding firm despite changes. Now, the idea of holding the block in this particular environment, i.e. in these regional, more lifestyle locations, striking distance from the city, is because there is the trend, huge trend of Australians sort of moving out to those particular areas. So you would have thought that, based on your auction result, Tom, that all of these would have flown off the shelves. But your point is that Danny probably burned a lot of his budget in that first sale. So therefore, there wasn't enough to go around to the other properties. And supply and demand when it comes to auction, do you have a bidder who wants a property and you know they've got the budget? You took all that money out of the market. So fair play to you. You've done your job well.
Yeah, he did. So, and I'm not going to get into trouble for saying this. At the end of the second auction, Danny came up to me. So ours was the first auction. So Danny's bought the second auction, I think for 4.1. I'm trying to remember. Was it the second?
No, I think they went 20 grand over the reserve. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Either the second or the third. And Danny's words were, hey, listen, I've got to make up for what's happened on the first one. It more or less was saying he was now amortizing, getting it down. So if you really think about it, Phil, by the way, I did the numbers from if I was the CFO of Channel 9, I'm in exactly the same position. This is the CFO. I'm not talking about TV viewing, because obviously it's disappointing for people there. And who knows, maybe some contestants are going to not want to go on to the show now. They'll be thinking to themselves, I'm going to work for 12 weeks. But I did the numbers, Phil. If the properties had sold each for $4.5 million, right? and the money had been general amongst all properties, or whether they sold now where Oz and Omar got the big money. I think in the end, I worked it out, 22 million was what Channel 9 recouped on property sales. So they're in exactly the same position. It's just that it was heavily weighted to the one property. And that's why these guys are, listen, over the moon. Good luck to them. They said they were really disappointed for the others. And I said, yeah. I said, but you are not the cause. You did not cause the others not to make money, So don't have to feel any responsibility. And I've got to tell you, Phil, they are of Lebanese descent. They're very avid, strong Muslims. And they have a very, they booked an auction and they say, Tom, we want to move our 10 a.m. auction to 3 o'clock because there's another one in the street now. And we want to be after that one. Man, there you go. There's a classic. There's a classic case of maybe don't sell it and take that buyer so they don't actually buy the next one.
Yeah, a lot of philosophy around whether to go first or wait until the price point gets set, and it's going to be market dependent. Tom, are you happy with the edit that they did for your particular property that you auctioned?
Not really. I think that. There were so many other valuable bits in there. But yeah, I mean, they didn't show pre-auction buyer meetings where I'm saying, have a hammer blow, knock them out. They didn't show the bits where I'm staring at them and I'm saying, you are the new main man, and there is competitive tension, and I'm looking at Danny's thinking to himself. So there's plenty of that was not shown. But listen, I mean, I went to the gym this morning and everyone said, you looked amazing. The others didn't. So I'm not going to complain. And let's be very clear. I could have ended up being one of the auctioneers for those other properties. I'm not,
who would have known? Imagine if you were fifth in the order rather than the first. So, a little bit of luck there, Tom, but obviously some skills, but some probably takeaways there for people buying or selling at auction, for agents who are recommending auction as a sales strategy for vendors. Tom, you spoke about pre-auction meetings. Tell me about that. Is this when the auctioneer meets with the potential bidders to try and get a sense for how they're going to bid and how serious they are? Is this a new thing?
Yeah. No, I've been doing it since the market's changed. And if I'm not doing it, the agents have got to be doing it. And that is called, everyone has pre-auction reserve meetings. I tell people to have a pre-auction buyer meeting with their best buyers prior to auction and say, hey, this is what's going to happen on the day. I'm letting you know this is the best way that you're going to be able to secure real estate. Go hard, go fast, go early. Tell everyone that you're there to do business. Intimidate everyone. Make it look like you're not going to stop. That's your biggest chance of buying the property. They're the sorts of conversations that people have got to be having with their buyers. They've also got to be sitting down there and sussing out where the buyers are thinking. Now, a lot of buyers don't give away value, right? But sit there and sort of say, oh, well, this sold for this and this sold for this. How would you feel about if the property got to this level? Like, how would you feel? And just to see people's reactions, you've got to get close to the buyers, right? You've got to get close to the buyers. And I urge it, But Phil, I've got to say it cost me a lot of money to do the block because I leave Sydney and I leave 12 auctions to fly to Melbourne to hang around while I'm waiting for TV producers to say, stop, start. So I lose a whole day, but it's a great experience. And, I'm licensed in Victoria. By the way, Phil, that auction, for all those there that are thinking, oh, how's it sus? There's this guy there. The Consumer Affairs were there like half an hour early, 2 inspectors sitting there front and center with clipboards watching the whole thing, So
there's no sense for double bidding. It was actually a real live auction scenario. Yes, it was on TV for the benefit of TV. However, it was a real deal auction. Tom, I reckon there's a lot of questions coming in through the feed here. So any question you wanted to ask Tom as a result of the block last night, get in touch right now. We'll answer them live on air while we've got Tom to chat this through. Now, Tom, the power of momentum, you kept that moving pretty quick through the auction process. You like a fast auction. I'm sure you got to think a fast auction is a something auction. I saw a lot of the other auctioneers getting sort of stuck, losing momentum in some of their selling. Why is momentum so important?
Two bits. Get a bid nice and early. Very important. There is nothing worse, Phil, there is nothing worse than waiting there for 5 minutes and there's a pause. You saw that yourself. You saw it. The minute there's a pause, the energy has been suffocated. The flow goes, momentum goes. So momentum is very important. And sometimes with momentum, Phil, you've got to get out of it. Auctioneers can get in the way of momentum, right? You've got to get out of it, which is a bit weird because normally you think of an auctioneer as doing all the talking. You've got to get out of it and you facilitate a bid. You don't call the bid. Facilitate bids. Let them happen. Let them happen. Let it flow. It is super, super important. But
so you've got to trust that process, then, Tom. Let the process of the auction take place. Just steer it along the way.
Yeah. Don't forget, Phil, I've been doing this for 35 years, 25 years doing auctions. I know, and it's happened to me, it happens many, many times in a year, where there's a momentum drop and it stalls. I know that I'm going to have people that are going to say, like, I rejected a bid gracefully 2 weeks ago, and the response from the bidder was, "Oh, my money's not good enough for you, is it? My money is not good enough for you, is it? So you don't want to take my money." And he's going and going and going. And whilst I could feel my emotions tensing up, but I know, Phil, the minute I get emotional, I make illogical decisions. Tennis players do it on the tennis court. You know, a tennis player loses their cool. You know, they end up. You've seen what happens. Yeah, not Philippoussis. Who's our latest guy that loses it?
I know who you mean.
Tall boy.
Yeah. Likes to smash his right. Yeah, Kyrgios.
Right? The minute you lose it, you know, you lose focus. Your actions aren't in step with what you should be doing. And I'm looking at the reserves. You know, there's a question here, Luke Moroney, were the reserves too high? I think so. But having said that, Scott Cam has gone on another media and has basically said, listen, we adjusted them by about 100,000 each, which didn't help Channel 9 commercially.
I think, Tom, the answer to that is, and they sort of mentioned a couple of times, it's pretty much replacement value for those houses. The building materials, time, energy, effort. Good luck building a house like that at the moment for less than $4 million on 10 acres of land.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean it's worth it, Phil. Do you know what I mean? Because there is a term called overcapitalization, right? So we're very clear. The depreciation schedule shows about $5 million worth of work's been built. The land has been acquired at $1.5 million each property. We're talking about $6.5 million of real estate there. The issue is, yes, it makes sense on paper. I understand it. But when you go into a suburb where the median value is about a half of that, all right, or a third, it doesn't mean you get your money, right? It doesn't mean you get your money. So, Phil, I think that the people that have bought it, you can't reproduce that property for that money, and they're still negotiating on 2 other properties. So do I think the reserves were too high? Listen, if they could have had higher reserves 6-8 months ago. I mean, let's face it, we're in our hardest market that we've had in years, and it was a week that the Reserve Bank said that there's lots of rate rises coming. Yeah.
Any other questions there, Tom?
Yeah, I'm looking at these. Why were the contestants allowed to interfere with the reserves? TV work, you know, they're sitting there, they bring out the reserves. Here are your reserves. It's all show, it's all eyeballs, right? Normally, the reserve is actually given to you by the vendor, but here we had 2 types of vendors. We had the TV, and then we've got the contestants. They're both vendors. In a typical auction scenario, there's one vendor. They give the reserve to the auctioneer, and for the record, Ray, let me tell you, I sometimes interfere I'm given reserves. And I often say to people, how did you come up with this number? Like, we want to go off and sell the property, but you've given me a number that seems to be totally out of line with what the market's saying. So that's that question there. But it is a good question, Ray. Then we've got here, not taught you're doing for years, but looking through the crystal ball and your experience. How different is today's market down under? What's down under mean in Australia? Probably
in Australia. That's a big question, Nat.
Okay. Well, the answer. Sorry, the answer is very simple. If you're in America, the market is better than America. If you're talking down under, America's Phil. America at the moment, because those interest rate increases have been quite aggressive. 0.75 is the last one. America is there, but I'm not going to hide it. We're in a challenging market, and I've got to tell you, I've got to also swallow my ego, because 4 weeks ago, I thought to myself that was the worst of it, right? Then we've ended up having dialogue and narrative from the Reserve Bank saying, there's more to come. We've got to slay the dragon. I already saw an impact straight away. Within a week or two of that, I started seeing, hardness in the market again.
Yeah. I was reading through the Sunday's papers yesterday, Tom, and a lot of the big four banks, they're saying different things now about where rates will top out next year. But some of them are already factoring in cuts in 2024. So I think there's going to be pain over 2023. Whether we're going to cap out in February and March, or cap out in August at sort of 3.85%. Still a lot to happen there, Tom. And the question I had to you the other day was, how do we stop Australian spending? And a lot of it's going to come down to when these fixed rates come off and turn into variable rate home loans. That's when we're going to see this impact. So whether or not that's going to put even bigger handbrake on the real estate industry, I don't know, but we'll be here to map and monitor it. Tom, what was your favourite part of being in the block 2022? Winning?
No, that was probably second. Favorite part of the block. Let's be honest. You win the block, you win 100,000. It's how much you get over reserve that matters. So for my favorite part, and I get nothing over reserve, and I get nothing for the winner's money. But my favorite bit, Phil, is, as you know, I was brought up like you, West, to see these two guys who don't come from money, who have got young kids and a family. Hey, $800,000 to them each is life-changing, Phil. I mean, Omar, Ozzy's got his fourth kid. I'm not even 100% certain whether they own homes or they're in rent. I'm not sure whether they're in rental. This is life-changing for them. So for me, is what they got over the reserve, that, I can see the value. Their wives were there. They left their wives with their kids for 3-4 months. I can tell family life had been disrupted, right? And just watching them actually being rewarded for the suffering of the disruption to their family made my day. And listen, of course, like anyone in real estate, you love being associated with winners more than losers, right?
Did you text each other the day before and say, has everyone got their 3-piece blue suit ready?
Good point.
That's what
they had, didn't they?
Yeah, mate. I reckon you're coordinated, mate. I don't know. Something went on there.
Good. Well, Phil, that suit, believe it or not, has been worn 3 times in 12 months. The block last year, Arik this year, and the block this year. I don't wear suits, right? Yeah. But now that you say it, they were dressed with blue suits, and I think that at least one of them had a vest,
Yeah. Looking sharp.
Yeah. I love it. I love it when I see these comments. Look at this guy here. John Cosmos, bet the Lambo was hired, LOL, and you'll find that all these comments, Phil, they actually come from people that not are real estate agents or auctioneers in the fraternity, because they understand when you're on the market at 4,080,000, it's unheard of. Dummy bidding is not something that happens over reserve. But it's really interesting, because I actually look at the show, and I think that the show actually is a bit of an education. It makes me realize how much people don't know. But I am going to tell you, whether we like it or not, the block now is going to be used by real estate agents this week, telling vendors the market's hard, the property won't sell. That people will use this as part of the way that they move forward. As Luke says, it's a tough slog. But to the answer to that person, John, sorry, sir. Look, you're probably not aware of how it works, but apart from dummy bidding being illegal, it just doesn't happen over reserve, because the person that's the highest bidder ends up with the property. And I've got to tell you, the buyer, Adrian, he was so devastated he missed out. He came in there thinking, I'm going to get it. He was devastated when he saw Danny walk in late too.
Yeah, well, there you go, Tom. Some takeaways. I took some notes here around the skill, the art, the science of auctions. Make the buyer the hero, irrespective of their tactics. Don't get emotional. Just play with them the whole way through it. Pre-auction buyer meetings, absolutely critical. Working with the buyers early, absolutely critical. Trust the process and the art of rejecting bids. All wrapped up with the umbrella of momentum, mate. It's a great word, momentum.
Phil Tarrant, thank you so much. I've got such a busy day. I've got a big conference coming tomorrow, and I've got to prepare for it. I need to prepare for it, and we'll speak soon. Huh? We'll see you on Thursday.
Thanks everyone for joining in. Real Estate Exposed Monday block edition. The real story. Tom, Panos, Phil Tarrant. We'll see you soon.